into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, all you Rowdies fans. This is James Knowles coming in RBLR Sports, and specifically the RBLR Rowdies. We are here tonight to discuss the most recent game, and it is me and my partner Leo. How you feeling, Leo?
I feel like I got hit with the double whammy this weekend. First Rowdies and then Mexican soccer national team. So besides that, I'm feeling great. Well, good, not great.
All right, good. Yeah. Well, besides that, we'll just we'll try to focus everything on the Rowdies into this next recording, and then you can forget it and leave it behind. We'll move on entirely. So
I'd really appreciate it.
yeah. So unfortunately, as we've kind of hinted at, we have a game to discuss for the Rowdies that did not go our way. In this past weekend on Saturday, the Rowdies lost against Charlotte away in their new stadium. It was a 2-0 loss, and we obviously did not get either of our predictions right because both of us predicted a Rowdies win, I believe. And yeah, that's the way that it went. We're going to have to break it down now, and like I said, we'll get through that, and then we'll put it behind us forever. So, Leo, why don't you take us into the stats here and give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, so first of all, we talked about the last podcast that Rowdy should continue this formation because it worked out against Loudoun United. But to be fair, they were the last place team, and we figured a team like Charlotte, who is on the bottom half of the Atlantic Division, that why shouldn't it work against them as well? So we stuck with the same formation, a three, I believe it was a 3-5-1-1. We have Evan Laurel in the back. The usual three center backs: Aaron Guillen, Forrest Lasso, Jordan Scarlett, Lewis Hutton protecting that back three. And in front of him, we had Jan Ekra and Lawrence White. On the left wing back, we had Leo Fernandez. On the right, Connor Antley. And Zach Steinberger in that number 10 role. And up top, Sebastian Gonzalez. So, when I first in the lineup, I was actually kind of excited for it because, we saw how it worked against Loudoun United and hoping it could work against Charlotte. But that wasn't really the case, although if you look at the stats, the Rowdies were the more dominant team, 62% possession. They had more shots, but only one of them was on target. So that should tell you how the game went. But speaking about the formation, I think it worked in the sense that the Rowdies were the more dominant team, but that didn't really translate in the final third. Like once they got closer and closer to Charlotte's 18-18, they didn't really know what to do. Most players were standing still or didn't, weren't really sure or aware of what runs to make to continue to play or even how to finish the play. Yet we had certain set pieces from corner kicks. We had crosses come in the box, and sometimes, we just passed the ball, but maybe we made the wrong pass. Players didn't know really where to go. So, that's from what I seen early on in the game and also throughout the game.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you there. It was really a problem of converting these possession spells into concrete chances where we have an open shot, or not even an open shot, just kind of a good shot. We, as you said, had a lot of possession here, and then we were trying to get into the same positions I thought that we usually try to. They set up, Charlotte that is, set up in a 4-4-2. But their winger, who was on the left, his name is Jake Araman. He is a player who was also very adept defensively. So what he would do is he would get up the wing, and then when they were in a defensive position, he would shift into a left back, and they would go with, kind of three at the back, similar to the way that we did it. Not quite as on the nose with three at the back, but yeah. So Jake Araman, like I said, would drop back to kind of help out there. And that seemed good enough to stifle a lot of the ability that we had, at least down, well, it would be our right side, obviously, to create those chances there. And then I didn't see that there was a lot going down their right side and our left side either. It was a problem where we were, like I said, unable to create those chances, but it comes down to a lot of factors that, this game had just a lack of energy, I would say, compared to the game against Loudoun. Against Loudoun, we were definitely a lot more on the front foot, and we were trying to press them, with energy and pace and intent. I think that last thing, it was the intent. The Rowdies kind of looked again like they had the couple of games before Loudoun United when everything, maybe not lackadaisical, I don't want to use that term, but it was definitely a little bit more pedestrian than in the games when we've looked at our best, I should say. We've definitely had games that, everybody knew that the Rowdies came out there and they were like, okay, we got to win this game. We got to win this game. It doesn't matter how, we're going to win this game. And this one just didn't seem to have that same urgency, I felt.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you said that this game lacked energy from the Rowdies going forward, and, and that was the words I was trying to look for, because from what I seen from the Rowdies, as I have here in our notes, they were all talk but no show, and by this I mean, they had the majority of the ball, most possession, but nothing to show for it. You could pass the ball all day long, but once you get closer to the opposition's 18-yard box, if you're not doing anything with it or really trying to be clinical in any way to get a shot on or score a goal, it's not going to work out. And honestly, in that first half, the only opportunity I really seen from the Rowdies that looked, a potential goal threat was Connor Antley's shot outside the 18, where Charlotte's keeper makes a great save. But besides that, Charlotte looked like the first team to score because they just looked scarier on the counterattack, and that's just the way they were going to set up. They invited pressure, but they were disciplined. They stayed focused defensively, and they just hit Rowdies on the counter whenever they could, and whenever they had the ball, they tried to make the most of it. But they looked a little bit more dangerous than the Rowdies, and that's saying a lot because they definitely had way less possession compared to the Rowdies. But that's just the way it was. The Rowdies just couldn't break Charlotte's defense.
Yeah, and this is something that you have to take then in relation to the way that the Rowdies played. Obviously, this is something that you said in a prior episode. I believe that it was if you don't score, then the other team is going to score. I think you had a better phrase for it. What was it?
If you don't score, you concede.
Exactly. Duh. If you don't score, you concede. That's a much better way of saying it than I did. But ultimately, that's what we saw. So the Rowdies were unable to gain anything with their positive possession. Moving forward, they really didn't, get anything outside that one shot that you mentioned. Whereas when Charlotte got the ball, they obviously did a lot more with it. And if it comes down to that, then, you have to look at which of the two defenses is going to have the better day. And unfortunately, that obviously from the result was Charlotte. Our defense actually gave up, some big mistakes that led to these goals. And, they came in kind of weird spots for the Rowdies. So the first one, we get through the first half and it's kind of, here or there. It's not the best. It's not the worst. Okay, maybe we can pick it up a little bit. And I believe that Neil Collins said a lot of that was down to the heat that they were playing on in Charlotte, and the fact that the turf field obviously will retain a lot more heat than non-turf fields. And as much as that's true, maybe you set up in a way that will allow you to keep that in mind, because Charlotte was able to play through the heat. They didn't have as much passing that would make them run a lot. So, they can attack on the counter, and otherwise they can kind of retain some of the energy that they would by, keeping themselves in the proper positions defensively. And then when they break out of those positions and they get their chance, then they get back and then they can sit for a little while longer. The Rowdies set themselves up in a formation such that they would have the possession a lot more, and then they would have to try to do something with that. And I don't know if they ran themselves into the ground, but we get into the second half, and I think it was 2 minutes into the second half. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was very early on where Lawrence White ultimately gives up the ball, and Martinez, I believe it was, took it off of him and then plays it right through our two center backs onto Dane Kelly. And Dane Kelly is somebody that everybody should know who's been playing in this league at this point. For any period. Aaron Guillen has been in this league for a couple of years. Forrest Lasso, I think, even longer. And the two of them get split by one of the most dangerous strikers in the whole league. That's just not, and I get, obviously, Lawrence White lost it in a bad position, so it mostly comes down to that. And it's also right off the half, but the halftime interval, but you have to be alert and focused, and especially in those moments of literally a transition of not playing to playing. Those are things that you have to take into consideration. And between the loss of possession and the great pass, it was a very good pass from Martinez, Dan Kelly is able to go on and ultimately beat Evan Loro. And yeah, it's something that we've talked about, is giving up early goals. This wasn't early in the game, but it was early in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And when I seen the replay of that goal, I couldn't really put any blame towards Lasso and Aaron Guillen, because, like you said, the mistake was because of Lawrence White. And I don't know if you noticed, but throughout the first half, it looked like he was trying to do too much, whether it was holding on the ball too long, or making a complicated pass instead of passing it to Jan Eker or to one of the wingbacks that was like 2 or 3 yards away from him. Looked like he was trying to do too much, like bring that energy that the Rowdies needed, but he did it in the wrong position when he was surrounded by 2 or 3 players, and they take the ball off of him. And you talk about Dan Kelly, how dangerous he is in this league, and how how much of a goal scorer he's proven himself to be in this league. Initially, I didn't really blame Aaron Guillen for his lasso, because Aaron Guillen made a last ditch tackle. It was his only option, because Lawrence White, he's the one that put them in that position, in that trouble. But I kind of put more blame on Forrest Lasso, because you're the main man in the back three. Someone needs to be marking him, or don't give him as much space, in case. I know you're not expecting Lawrence White to make a mistake like that, but just in case that happens, you need someone to be at least a yard or 2 yards, or someone really close to Dan Kelly, so that way he doesn't have time to get his feet together to dribble past 2 defenders. But like you said, it initially started with Lawrence White's mistake. And going back to what he said about Neil Collins, how he said that the Heat played a factor. I don't buy that, Mr. Collins, because you play in Florida, where it's hot almost every single day. We don't even get winters that much. So I don't know why he will blame the Heat for this kind of game. You could say that the turf with the Heat plays a factor, but you play in Florida. You play in the you're more southern than northern in the state of Florida. So I don't buy that excuse.
Yeah, I kind of I agree with what you're saying there, and I think that partially it comes down to something that you want to find some blame for, and I can totally understand that heat does affect players. It's not something that they wouldn't take into consideration. But my point towards Mr. Collins, if I were an assistant of his, is like, okay, as you just said, that can't be an excuse. We are used to playing in that, and B, Charlotte also had to play under the same conditions. They lined themselves up in the way that allowed them to deal with it.
Exactly. And man, after, I feel like the way the Rowdies started that second half, like they were refreshed. They were going to continue with the game plan, and maybe they would have been likely to get the first goal. But like we've always been saying for a while, they tend to concede first in ways that they shouldn't be conceding. They usually shoot themselves in the foot, and they get caught again being a goal down. Then you gotta work twice as hard now, and now you're playing in the hands of your opponents, where they got you right where they want you to be. So, and that's really how it was throughout the second half. Yes, Rodgers continued to have a ball more, but that's because the team invited the pressure. They knew that if they could, catch you off guard like they did to Lawrence White, who's to say they can't do it again?
And then ultimately, they did do it
exactly,
again.
Yeah,
They had a corner around the 62nd minute. That ball was cleared, but ultimately it was sent back in. It was another clearance that ultimately didn't work out. This is something that we've seen from a lot of defensive set pieces for the Rowdies, and it's just it's not good enough, is what it is. There's really no other way to describe it. It fell ultimately to Sylvain Marveau. That was a player that I highlighted before the game, a former EPL guy, and obviously someone who's very experienced within this game. He knows how to play. He got the ball back in, and it went to the far post. It was headed back ultimately into the middle, and then they were able to score off of that. I believe the player was able. He was pretty much wide open, Irvin Parra. He got the shot off. It was, players getting caught looking one way and then the other as the ball kind of bounced around. It was very reactive as opposed to proactive in terms of their defense, and that's kind of the way that the Rowdies have been caught a couple of times now. So these are problems with players that we didn't see last year, is what I
Right.
would. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something that I would like to mention in terms of, these are players who are very good at this level. Forrest
Yeah.
Lasso was the defender of the year last year. Jordan Scarlett was on the all league team, or the second team, I should say. Forrest Lasso obviously on the first team. And I felt at the time that it was ridiculous that Aaron Guillen wasn't also on one of those teams. But now, could we say that? Could we say, why are these players not on the team of the year if it was, created tomorrow for whatever reason? I would not want any of them on the team of the year at this point for their positional and defensive play
Mhm.
for the last, I don't know, 2 months maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And basically we wouldn't be surprised if they weren't included on that defensive team of the year if it does for some reason come out tomorrow. But no, another thing I want to point out is that I think there was a lack of miscommunication because initially when the ball is first crossed from that corner, lances Sebastian Guazzati and he clears it. But I don't think he had to clear it. There was nobody around him. He could have dribbled it up. But I think that comes down to a lack of communication, whether it's from your back three or Evan Lohr or someone in the box to telling him that just take it up. There's no pressure on you whatsoever. There was literally no players within a good amount of yards near him. He could have dribbled it up, and but like I said, it comes down to lack of communication to telling him that there's no trouble near him. Maybe it was instinct from Sebastian Guzzali just to clear it, and someone did tell him. We might not know that because I'm pretty sure none of the players are mic'd up.
All
But
right.
if he dribbles up, he gets his team out of pressure, and not only that, he regains, uh, if not for a long time, but at least a short amount of time possession for the Rowdies, so they could fix themselves in the back line. Instead, he just clears it. It's not even a long clearance. He gives it right back to Charlotte, and from right there, they just send the ball back in. As you just talked about, it's a lot of ball watching, no one really marking their man. You expect more from a back three, and also, some you kind of also you got to put some blame on Sebastian Guzzardi. You expect more from your captain, your experienced player who tends to draw back a lot during games to maybe that was an opportunity to lead on a counter, go dribble through that space. Maybe Leo Fernandez or Connor Anley are going to support you on the right, or the center mid is going to support you. Instead, you clear it out and you just invite the pressure all over again, and it leads to a goal.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
so those are all problems that ultimately led to the two goals that we saw. And, there really weren't too many other positives from the way that the game went. Obviously they had to change up their formation as they were chasing goals. So they had a lot more
Yeah.
play, a lot
One thing.
more chances where the ball was just played vertically instead of side to
Mhm.
side, which is maybe something that we need to see more. But yeah, that obviously came well too late in the game.
Yeah, one thing I would say is that obviously when you two goals down, you haven't scored any goals yet. You have to throw numbers forward. That's a no brainer. You have to do that to get a goal to get back in the game. But when they were 2-0 down, we seen some good some good passing sequence from the Rowdies. When Lakaweki came in, we've seen some, and when Jordan Doherty came in as well, we've seen quick 1-2s, more and more bodies getting into the box. We've seen Leo played in through Lakaweki. He first time volleys the ball out wide, but why weren't we doing this when we're tied 0-0? Why is it only when you concede first you decide to take it up a level? Why aren't you starting out the game in this sort of fashion? You want to do it when it's a little too late, when there's like 20 minutes left in the game. Now you want to start playing. And this is something I feel like I'm repeating myself because this is something we've been saying for a little while now, James.
It is, and
Hmm.
that's the problem. Do we? Where is the problem in terms of the preparation for the game? That's what it is. Where is the problem
Yeah.
for the preparation where we're coming out kind of flat-footed in all of these games, or maybe not flat-footed, although as we've said, when you're flat-footed as a defender, that's when you concede early pretty frequently, and that's kind of what I would like to eliminate. Obviously, is us not being in
Hmm.
that position, but the other thing that you do is when you're playing with a lot less energy or a lot less, maybe not intention, maybe just energy was one. Maybe when you just feel like more is on the line, I guess. When you think that there's more on the line, and you could see it in the way that the Rowdies played over the course of the game. Early on, obviously, we said they were, fair enough. The first half went kind of one way, kind of back and forth, but not really anything major in terms of any chances. So you go into the second half and they score early, and then we're chasing, and then they score again. After that, that's when we start to pick up the pace. That's when more is on the line, so to speak. So what is wrong with the preparation that we only get to the point where they realize what they're playing for, kind of, after we've already given up a couple of goals? That's the problem that I think is one of the bigger problems that comes into play in this game, as well as preparation obviously is involved when we're giving up so many early goals.
Exactly. Yeah. So like preparation is the umbrella. And then, under the umbrella you have not being clinical, starting out slow, conceding first. It all starts with, preparing for these games like you're saying. And, even two goes down, when Charlotte invites even more pressure from the Rowdies, they're not clinical enough. Like you expect someone like Leo Fernandez, who's played in on goal like that, to score, or you expect, to be at least a little, get more heads or get more headers on target from corner kicks, or you have 13 shots. Why is only one of these on target? That doesn't make sense when you have players like Sebastian Gonzalez, Leo Fernandez, Lawrence White, Lewis Hilton. You have these kind of players who are who are capable of scoring goals, but you only have one shot on target from 13 shots to show for it. That's, like you said, it all comes back to preparations.
Yeah, so that is kind of the way that the game went, and those are kind of the biggest issues that we saw. Dane Kelly, obviously, he scored the first goal, and he looked dangerous throughout the game, so he's someone that we got to bring up again here. And then the other, I think, last thing that we can do before we get into questions was just mention that Lucky Nkosana was able to get more game time today, and that's positive for at least the future. It might not be the best thing for this past game, but I think it will lead. I think it will lead to better things, like I said, in the games to come. So
I think it was the best thing for the last game.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, that covers our analysis portion, and then I think that we still have all of our questions remaining, and including our hot take section and all of that stuff. So let's get into this question, and the first one that we wanted to go over for the listeners is: did we like the use of the same formation?
I would say I did. I liked it in the sense that you were the more dominant team, maybe it's because that's the way Charlotte wanted to play. But operating in that formation, you allow, because early on in the first half, I saw Zach Steinberger playing with a lot more confidence, taking on players and giving more passes, and I feel like I kind of liked it. We'll get more into my hot take of why this formation is critical at this point of the season. But I feel like I did like it, and there have to be some tweaks. Although Jan Ekra, we know our last game he had an amazing achievement. He had his 200th appearance for USL. He had a good game as well, but he just doesn't bring that energy or that kind of quickness or pace that we usually need in that center mid alongside with Lawrence White. If you put in someone like Jordan Doherty in that center mid, I feel like he could provide that for you, unless you want Jordan Hurd to come off the bench more. That he provides that energy when the opponent gets tired. But I think, uh, he needs to start just to see how it is. I think Neil Collins does have the right idea of this formation because he knows he gave Jordan Adebayo Smith more than enough chances, and he didn't really make the most of it. Whether that's down to Adebayo Smith or down to Neil Collins, and like Kasana is just he's barely coming back in the squad, so he shouldn't really take too many risks on that because he still have plenty of games to go. So these are really with no choice but to play with one striker. So when we talk about preparations, I think that's what this leads to. So I like these of the formation, even though we did lose, we were the more dominant team, and maybe if Lawrence White doesn't make that mistake, it could have been a different game. But I like that. I don't know about you, James. How did you feel about it?
Well, I did think that we should at least have given it another shot.
Yeah.
We did have one of the better games. I thought, like we said last week, I thought that that game was, a very good representation of the Rowdies and the way that they can play. I thought that everybody played their position well. They did their duties, and they were, as you said, clinical. This game, then we saw all of the opposite of those things happen, and all of the problems that we've been dealing with kind of showed up again. So, what if it's something that can be done before the game? Fair enough. If it's something that the heat was so bad that really they couldn't even do it, then okay, that's a problem with the way that they line up. And I'm not entirely sure all of where the problem is. As with every week, we can only tell you what we're thinking. We don't have any access to the players' brains, the coaching staff. What exactly they're thinking. They'll only tell us what they tell us, and unfortunately, it's not exactly as much as I would like. But that's how it goes sometimes. And I hope that the formation itself is not the real problem here, because I thought that it is a good use of the players that we have available to us. And it is, it's definitely capable of producing some good results. Maybe there are, mitigating factors, sure. And let's see if those mitigating factors are something that we could ultimately overcome. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. But the problem is then, we just did that against Loudoun. Loudoun, unfortunately, is not one of the best teams in the league. So is this a formation that will actually work with stronger opponents? And is it something that will, help us over the course of a whole season?
Well, I know we have players from injury to get back. So when they come back, I think the formation will change. But if we were to only play this formation, I think it will work against stronger opponents in the case that players don't shoot themselves in the foot. We see with Connor Anley against the Miami FC, and last Saturday we seen Lawrence White against Charlotte Independence. How you make one mistake changes the whole game. If you don't do that, if you don't cut out all these silly mistakes and put your team in a troubling position, then maybe it might work against the stronger opponents, because then you'll be the team. Even in the defensive side of this formation, you have protection for that back three. And we've seen in against Charlotte how many times Leo Fernandez just dropped back, carrying the ball out, doing his defensive duties. It's the first time that I've really noticed how deep Leo Fernandez was dropping, and maybe that's because of this new formation, to provide more coverage for that back three. So, besides those two goals, they I think the defense they did well enough to keep Charlotte Independence from really making any dangerous plays on their own instead of scoring off of Rowdy's mistakes. So defensively, I think this formation will work against stronger opponents. It's just the case of how can you get, if you want to grade out 1-0 results, maybe this formation will work. But if you want to, get more than one goal, I think that's something Neil Collins is going to have to figure out with this formation. But I think if I was giving it percentages, I would say this plan is about 65% effective for working against stronger opponents.
I mean, yeah, that's probably the most scientific thing we've got right now, based on the results. You can only do the math, right? But
Exactly.
yeah, so I tend to agree with all that. But with everything that we just said, one of the bigger questions I would think is, why do the Rowdies continue to concede first under all of these,
Exactly.
all of these the games that we play that aren't up to our standards?
Well, it has to be because the silly mistakes. You're following a game plan, but then when someone makes that goal conceding mistake, it changes everything. Now you gotta basically go to desperate mode, especially if you do that in the second half. Now if we look at Connor's Antley mistake, 1-0 early in the game. All right, we still got this half and a whole another half. Lawrence White, you make in the second half, you don't have another half. You gotta get it right at that very moment, and you gotta get it right very soon. So that just, maybe you might not follow the game plan. Maybe you might see players, holding the ball a little bit too long, trying to take on more, an extra player instead of just taking on one player and passing the ball to another player. Now you want to see players who independently want to be the reason to change the game. So now, you I think that's the reason for they're conceding these goals is because you concede early, the game changes, but it's mainly because you just get caught off guard and it comes from out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that those are the bigger problems outside of the ones that we've already mentioned. And if we're not gonna, rehash everything over and over, then I think that that's the best place to leave that. So, if that's the case, do we blame this loss on Neil Collins or the players? Maybe both. Is that why the Rowdies have more losses than wins on the road this year? Obviously that's going to be a tough question, but what are you thinking about that?
As far as blaming the losses, I feel like I would say, I mean, the obvious answer would be both because one, Neil Collins isn't playing; it's the players that are playing. But you also got to put blame on the head coach. When don't you got to put blame on the head coach? I mean, you look at Jordan Adebayo Smith. We keep on talking it, whether if it's Neil Collins telling him to stay up top, stay in the center instead of drifting out wide, instead of making those runs in behind, instead of really using his pace as an advantage for the Rowdies. We don't know if that's the way Adebayo Smith plays or the way Neil Collins is instructing him. And same way with you would say with Sebastian Gonzalez, is he the one that's dropping back so deep, or is that Neil Collins saying you need to come back and help your midfielders? So I would say it's a little bit of both, but I would feel I would say the blame is mainly more on at this point. I would kind of say the players because there's a reason why Neil Collins is on changing formations because the players in certain positions aren't performing for him. So he tried with Adebayo Smith, didn't work out. So and then you tried that Dayon Harris experiment up top. Although it might have worked out, he gets injured and you start from scratch again. So then you have no option but to go with one striker now and put in, more midfielders in one to hopefully get more goals and two to protect that back three. So, at this point, I would kind of say the players, I remember in the beginning of the season, we were talking about like how much depth this Rowdies team has. If players get hurt, not only is it depth, we got, capable players who could come in and really make a difference whenever they give the opportunity to do so. We're not really seeing that from them. So, we've seen different formation changes. We've seen players going from right mid to forward, from center attacking mid to center mid. That's because, the instructions that Neil Collins is giving to his players, maybe they're not effectively, nailing down these roles that they're supposed to. And in regards to why we have more losses than wins on the road, one, you don't have home advantage, and we know how important home advantage is. But again, you're right. It is a tough question to answer. I think that when we play against teams on the road, we kind of want to be that team that's more dominant, and I feel like opposing teams, who are home when we're playing away, they let the Rowdies play that way. So they know, we could hit them on the counter and then they're in all sorts of trouble. They have no fans to back them on. This is, they're playing in our house. We're going to score whenever we could. So then that puts them in a lot of trouble as well. So although it's a tough one to answer, I would say the reason why we have more losses than wins on the road is because away teams they tend to invite the pressure from the Rowdies and they counter whenever they could. It just as we've seen this Saturday with Charlotte Independence.
Yeah, so I that I agree with everything that you said. I don't have anything to nitpick even, but yeah, it's a problem on really just all sorts of fronts is what Exactly. It comes down to. Yeah. So then the next thing, I guess, I got a hypothetical question here for you. You tell me what you think. If White doesn't make that mistake in the middle of the field, do you think that the Rowdies would ultimately have gotten the first goal the way that the second half started?
I do think so because, like I said, you can see the first goal. Now you're in desperate mode, as we've seen from the Rowdies, more than enough times this season. But no, the way they started out that second half, they were once again they were in possession more. It looked like Neil Collins gave them a talk on how to create more chances in the box. Maybe we might have not seen what Neil Collins envisioned because, like I said, you're in desperate mode. You're throwing more numbers forward. You're not really following the game plan. You're just trying to get a goal, whatever means necessary. But that could also hurt you because between they can see the second goal that it shouldn't really have been scored. But I think if White doesn't make that mistake, we do get a goal because I feel like it's almost like a wear and tear. You're slowly making this Charlotte defense trying to survive wave after wave after wave. Yeah, it looks comfortable, but in this kind of game, you just gotta be patient for that first goal. So I do think that mistake was crucial and ultimately the turning point in this game.
Yeah, it can't be argued otherwise. Obviously, the importance of that mistake to the rest of the way that it played out. You can see ultimately with the way that the Rowdies started to start try to make up for that goal that they were down, and then they ultimately concede again. So after that, Neil Collins brings on I think three substitutions at once, if not at least two. He tries to make two very big changes into the way that the Rowdies are playing after that with substitutions in the 60th minute and then the 67th minute as well. So obviously those are big important factors in the way that the rest of the game played out. But yeah, I guess that's kind of everything that we have for the time being. And with all of that being said, the last question that we have for this is who's your man of the match, Leo?
This was a hard question because for this game I just didn't know who's my man of the match. But based on what I seen, I'm gonna have to give it to Leo Fernandez because one, I feel like he caught my eye more defensively than offensively. He would really drop back and try his best to prevent a goal. Although none of the goals were really his fault, he tried playing his role. But then the most dangerous opportunity we had in the game came from making that run after that ball was played by Lakowecki, where although he shoots it wide, I think he should have scored. But he looked like someone from the first minute to the last. He was always trying to get a goal and put his team back in the game.
All right, I like that. Playing at the defensive side because, as you said, it was a pretty hard choice to make your man of the match. There really wasn't too much to go off of positively. So I will say for me, this is kind of based on last week when I was at the game. I saw somebody pretty early on that was really catching my eye with his nice movement and kind of just silky smooth play. And then it wasn't obviously as good this week. I think that everybody's grade took at least a letter hit. If you had an A, you at most had a B this game. But my man of the match would be Jan Ekra. So he obviously, like I said, had a good game last week, but also this week he had 8 duels won, and that's obviously very important to the defensive effort. 1 clearance, he had 1 successful tackle, and he had 3 recoveries. So I think overall he will get that award from me, and like I said, that also has partly to do with his work last week. So maybe some extra credit or a curve on the scale.
Yeah, he was actually my second choice. Watching the game, he looked like he really controlled that center mid really well. There was a point in the first half, towards the end of the first half, where Jan Eker was really starting to create problems for Charlotte. So I thought of that for a little bit, but I feel like there was a reason why Neil Collins took him out for Jordan Doherty, probably because he wasn't really providing that spark like he did towards that first half, towards the end of that first half that Neil Collins kind of wanted in the second half to get his team back in the game. So, it could have gone either way. I'm happy with either with our man of the matches for the against Charlotte Independence.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of splitting hairs ultimately when you have the circumstances that we're looking at. But those are everything in terms of our questions. We have hot takes here. We've gone over the post game from Neil Collins, and that was what we described it as. So Leo, go into your hot take and tell us what you have this week for us.
All right. So my hot take of the week is that assuming that Neil Collins won't go to a back four, this formation that we used in the last 2 games, I believe, is the last formation that can work for the Rowdies to get points until other players return from injury. And by that, I mean, Neil Collins has tried converting a right wing back to a striker. He switched the midfield. 2 players in center mids. He switched the pairing in that positions a few times this season. He's tried switching the wingers every now and then, and it hasn't been working. So instead, he's gone with 1 striker. Really, 6 players in the midfield position. So I feel like he's and I know he won't go to a back four. I know he won't. So this is in my perspective, this is his last possible formation that he's thinking of, and probably last formation that he thinks that he could get results from from other opponents in the USL. So I think this is the last possible formation for him to work, and if it doesn't work, and it's going to be a tough time for Rowdies fans.
Yeah, I can probably only agree,
Even though it's
especially
already
with that
been some
last
tough
part.
times.
Yes, exactly. That's the only caveat I might have. But my hot take for this week is Steven Dos Santos might not be enough to turn this around when he comes back.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so if anyone is listening who is also on Twitter and they follow the Rowdies, A, you should do that. Definitely some good content there. And B, you would have seen that Steven Dos Santos is possibly making a comeback at some point soon. He at least does have the boot off. I think that's been the case for a little while. And I think that he's back involved in regular training again. So my biggest takeaway at this point is that, Steven Dos Santos was very important to everything that the Rowdies were doing when they were successful very early in the season. Definitely the case. But my other thing is that right now, the players around him, or the players who would be around him, obviously, they are not playing up to the level such that it would be, enough when he comes back for us to turn it around, and then we're right back into the same form that we were at the first part of the season. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that maybe maybe his return will bring some confidence back, some sorely needed confidence, and we can turn things around. But I guess that's the one that I got to go with right now, based off of what I'm seeing.
It's a really hot take, James, because we've been saying for a while that the Rowdies just need to hold it down till the Santos comes back, and now you're saying you're not even sure, which I understand. Rightfully so. I understand that. He might not even be the answer to everyone's prayers right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what it is,
Yeah,
Well, he will fill his positional role, but when we're having problems outside of his position as well, then you can't just look to him to fix everything, because he can't also be a center back. He can't also be a central midfielder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that's the way that I feel about this potential return.
Your hot take was hotter than mine this week. I gotta admit, I need to step up my game a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to have a hot take off at some point here, but maybe that will be something that Twitter can help us out on in terms of measuring how hot they all are. But in the meantime, before we start doing our Twitter competitions, which we should probably add into our feed, I would like to bring up the table at this point. So, unfortunately, the Rowdies have dropped out of first place in the Atlantic Division. They are now second with 27 points from 15 games. Pittsburgh Riverhounds, they overtook us this past weekend. They're in first place after defeating Hartford 3-1, and they have 30 points from 16 games. They did play one more than us. And depending on how our game in hand goes, whenever we get to that in the schedule, then we could go ahead of them. We do both have a +7 goal differential, and if we win, obviously that would put us at a higher than +7 goal differential, and put us ahead of them. But we would have to see obviously where that goes. Rowdies are in third in the Eastern Conference. Overall, they're currently behind Louisville, who have 33 points from 16 games, and Pittsburgh, like I said. And we have to keep an eye on Birmingham, who are coming up right behind us. They have 26 points and a game in hand as well. We have a game coming up this Friday. It is going to be an away game at 7 p.m. And Leo, can you give us a bit of a preview as to what we should be thinking here?
Yeah, so as most fans recall, last time out, Rowdies won 1-0 against New York Red Bulls 2. That game was also away, so if we know how to win there, maybe we should win again. But as we all know, Rowdies have difficulties beating a team the second time around. So, and apparently third time around, because they lost to Charlotte twice already. But yeah, so Red Bulls 2, they're in 7th in the Eastern Conference. No, sorry, the Atlantic Division, which is the same as the Rowdies. They are in second to last place. So they're not one of the stronger opponents. They have 3 wins, 8 losses, and 4 ties so far this season. They have 13 points from 15 games, and it's never a good sign when you have your points are less than the number of games you played. But Red Bulls too, they have lost their last 2 games and only won once in their last 5. And ironically, their last win date comes back to July 7th. And why didn't you guess it? It was a 3-2 victory against Charlotte Independence, the team that just beat us this past weekend. So when we play the Red Bulls August 6th, it will almost be a month since Red Bulls 2 last won a game. And I can tell you, you do not want to be that team that gets beaten by a team that hasn't won in a month.
You really don't want to. And I'm a little bit more positive about this game. We were able to get a win when we played the Red Bulls away last time. And it was on turf, like this game against Charlotte. So maybe Neil will have something to say about that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. The other issue that I would bring up, well, not issue actually, it was something to our favor. The other thing that I would bring up about this game, when we played the New York Red Bulls last time, it was during a break in the MLS season. They had taken a break so that they could let players go out to international competitions, and because of that, their season taking a break, they had to drop a couple of players from their first team down to the second team. So players that you would regularly see in MLS were lining up against the Rowdies, and as much as that means that they were going to be top players in this league, the Rowdies were able to handle them. At this point, the New York Red Bulls actually have 2 games this week in MLS. So they are playing on August 4th, that is Wednesday. And then they are also playing on August 8th, and that is Sunday. They will not have any of the players from their MLS team that they would probably want to drop down to play a good team like the Rowdies are. And I think that will help us out a little more because most of their team is made up of 17-year-olds and under. I think that if there is that bounce back factor that we've been trying to talk about and how it could pick up some momentum. I'm not sure that we've seen it actually so far over the course of this year, but maybe, playing against a bunch of teenagers and kids who just came out of college last, March or whatever it was, that will give us the chance to actually get some momentum and actually get a real bounce back that could carry us into a couple of games.
Good. Well, another thing I want to add is that, first of all, you don't want to lose to a team that hasn't won in, a little less than a month. And you also don't want to lose to a high school team. So
you do not.
Exactly, you don't. But like you said, it's a good thing for the Rowdies that those players who will usually come down and play for the Red Bulls too, just because they need to get their game fitness in for the Red Bulls are in the MLS. Hopefully that'll definitely be a plus for Rowdies this time around. And yeah, like you said, this team isn't one of the most difficult teams we'll be playing this season. And most of them are teenagers, so I think we can't expect nothing less than a win. Would you agree, James?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be a win or bust at this point.
Exactly, definitely. And I think this leads us to our predictions. Would you say, James?
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take this one. As long as you won't fight me over it, I'm gonna take a prediction on this one.
It's all good. You go ahead.
I want us to obviously get a win here, and I want us to put in the defensive work to back that up. I am going to say this one, though, probably will be a little bit more of a cagey affair in terms of the defensive side. So let's say a 3-1 win. A 3-1 win to lead us into, hopefully, Steven Dos Santos coming back soon, even if it's not this game. He can see us win 3-1, and then he can go, okay, I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to score some goals.
Okay, I like I will admit you took my prediction because I was doing my research on New York Red Bulls too, and in 3 of their last games they conceded 3 goals from the teams that happen to play those games. So instead of a 3-1, I'm gonna say this is the game where Rowdies get a clean sheet. Something that we haven't really heard of a while. So I'm gonna go for a 3-0 win.
A 3-0 win. Okay, so it's threes across the board. I hope that we can keep up the trend. Otherwise, we're both out of luck.
Yeah, man. It's I can't remember the last time we were right for a prediction, but that's just the way it goes this season. But it's all good as long as the Rowdies win. We know we'll both be happy.
That's right. So the last couple of things here, we obviously mentioned Steven Dos Santos, and right now it should be said, though, that we don't have an indication of exactly when he should be coming back. But As we said, it is a promising sign, and we have some Twitter questions here. So I will read that to you, Leo, and if you want to jump on in, this goes right back to what we were talking about with Duba. What kind of boost do you think Steven will bring to the squad when he comes back? That was from Carlos at Carlos TPA10. So thank you for sending that in.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos, for that question. I think he's going to bring a tremendous boost in the team. I mean, like you said in your hot take, might not be big enough to turn this team around, but I mean, we just seen what he did in those first 4 games of the season. You know how he would just easily brush off defenders. His hold up play was amazing. I didn't realize how much pace he had in his legs, and just he the way he plays allows other people to shine. You know, when he holds the ball up, he allows Connor Anley, or Leo Fernandez to get in behind. He allows Sebastian Guazzari to get in good places, and we haven't really seen anyone replicate that. So when he comes back, I think he'll be a big boost. But again, that time off, wearing a boot for that long, not really doing the exercises that you need, it kind of won't really help a player in replicating the form that they had before an injury. So, I know a lot of Rowdies fans want to see him back as soon as possible, but I feel like medical team from the Rowdies need to be very careful with him, because if we really want him back to his best, we need to make it to a point where he's comfortable, and he'll be at that level again shortly, but also safely.
Exactly. We gotta make sure that it's safe, lest we lose him for an even longer period. That would be the worst possible situation. And then we do have one more Twitter question, but I think it might be a little bit of a troll here. I'll lead you into it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't like this question.
This is from David Morales at Davey from Tampa. He asks, Tata out? And there is even a response to that. This is from JDCOYR at Mom Says I'm Ultra. Great handle, by the way. He replied to that, Tata in, back at Atlanta. You got any takes on this one, Leo?
Well, for the first question, the Tata out question, not yet. That's my question. Not yet. Hats off to USA for winning the Gold Cup. They did well to capitalize off of Mexico's mistakes throughout the game. But not yet. We were missing our probably Mexico's biggest player right now in Raul Jimenez. We had Irving Lozano, Chucky Lozano out from because of that horrible injury in that first game. And
that was a terrible tackle.
terrible tackle. I still don't know how VR did not intervene in that. But our number one goal is in the Olympics right now. So at the end of the day, obviously good Cup Nations Leagues are good trophies to win. But if you win those trophies and you don't qualify for the World Cup, it kind of means a little bit less. So I think that's kind of what you're thinking with Tata Martino in terms of the Mexican Federation right now. So I would say keep him in for now, see how he does in World Cup qualifiers. On top of that, you're paying him lots of money to get to this team where the Mexican Federation believes that Tata will get them to. So I say keep him around for qualifiers. Obviously, if he does qualify, see how he does in the World Cup, then see what you do from there. As far as back in Atlanta, why not, right? If you finish the cycle with Mexico, why not get him back to Atlanta? Atlanta, man, they've gone south so bad recently.
Yeah, they really have. They've got a lot of problems to fix before they could move forward. So, all right, I think that's everything. And listeners, please, if you have questions, we would also love to take those. And you can do that with Ask RBLR. That is hashtag Ask RBLR. Or you can tag either myself or Leo on Twitter. I am at RBLR James K. And Leo, where can they ask you questions if they have any for you?
I invite questions, analysis, anything like that. It doesn't have to be about the Rowdies. It could be about anything soccer in general. But you can find me on Twitter at _Leo Santos __. That's 2 underscores at the end.
All right, everybody, don't forget the underscores. And thank you as well, listeners, for tuning in this week. We always appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RBLR Sports. And you can like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube and all other major podcasting platforms.
Yeah. Thank you, listeners. And I'm pretty sure nothing else to say, but besides, Go Rowdies, and come on, you Rowdies.
On you, Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.